I've been driving the 2:15 night bus for almost 7 years, and I can tell you this. The city is a different animal after midnight. The streets empty out, the neon signs flicker, and the shadows seem to stretch a little longer than they should. Most people think the worst thing you'll see on a night route is a drunk college kid or a couple of teenagers trying to sneak a free ride. They're wrong. There are things out here that don't care about fare or curfew, and if you want to make it to sunrise, you follow the rules. All 9 of them. I keep the list taped to the dash, right next to the faded photo of my daughter. The paper's yellowed and the ink smudged, but I could recite every rule in my sleep. I have, actually. Sometimes I wake up muttering to them, heart pounding, sweat cold on my neck. My ex-wife used to laugh about it, back when she still called. Now it's just me, the bus, and the city's secrets. Tonight, the rain is coming down in sheets, turning the windshield into a kaleidoscope of streetlights and red taillights. The wipers squeak in a steady rhythm, and the heater rattles like it's got a ghost trapped inside. I pull up to the first stop, the one under the old clock tower, and glance at the rearview mirror. Empty, except for the flicker of lightning outside. That's good. The first rule is never let anyone board before 2:20. Doesn't matter if they're waving, crying, or pounding on the door. The bus doesn't open until the clock on the dash hits 2:20 exactly. I learned that the hard way my first week, and I still have the scar on my left hand to prove it. I check the time. 2:17, 3 minutes to go. I sip my coffee, bitter and lukewarm, and try not to think about the night 3 years ago when I broke rule number 4. That was the night I saw something in the back row that still visits me in my dreams. I never told anyone what happened, not even the supervisor who found me shaking in the depot at dawn. Some things you keep to yourself if you want to keep your job and your sanity. The city feels like it's holding its breath. Even the rain seems quieter, like it's waiting for something. I glance at the list of rules again, tracing my finger down the page. Rule 2. Never look directly at the passenger in seat 7B. Rule 3. If the lights flicker twice between stops, skip the next stop, no matter who's waiting. Rule 4. If you hear someone whisper your name, don't answer. Rule 5. Never let anyone off between the river and the old hospital. Rule 6. If you see a child alone at a stop, keep driving. Rule 7. If the bus gets cold, check the mirrors. Rule 8. If you smell roses, open all the windows. Rule 9. At the end of the route, always check every seat except the last one. I know them by heart, but tonight, for the first time in years, I feel uneasy. There's a weight in the air, a sense that something's about to go wrong. Maybe it's the weather, or maybe it's the way the city looks different in the rain. Or maybe it's because, as the clock ticks over to 2:20 and I open the doors, I see a passenger waiting at the curb who I've never seen before. He's not wet, even though he's standing in the downpour. He smiles at me, and there's something wrong with his eyes. I swallow hard, my hand tightening on the wheel. I remind myself of the rules, but tonight, I have a feeling they might not be enough. The doors hiss open, and the man steps onto the bus with a kind of deliberate calm, like he's got all the time in the world. He's tall, maybe 6'3", with a long black coat that doesn't have a single drop of rain on it. His hair is slicked back, and his eyes, gray, almost silver, don't blink as he looks at me. He doesn't say a word, just nods once and moves down the aisle, his shoes making no sound on the rubber floor. I watch him settle into seat 7B, the one I always try not to look at, and a chill runs down my spine. I force myself to breathe, to focus on the routine. That's how you survive the night shift. Routine. I close the doors, check the mirrors, and pull away from the curb. The city slides past in streaks of yellow and red, the rain blurring everything into a watercolor of shadows. I glance at the rear view, careful not to let my eyes linger on 7B. The rest of the bus is empty, just me and the stranger. At the next stop, a familiar figure waves from under a battered umbrella. It's Mrs. Patel, who's been riding my route for years. She's in her 60s, always wears a bright scarf, and carries a tote bag full of groceries. She climbs aboard, shaking water from her umbrella, and gives me a tired smile. "Rough night, Daniel," she says, her voice warm and steady. "Just another Tuesday, Mrs. Patel," I reply, forcing a smile. She taps her card, finds her usual seat near the front, and starts rummaging in her bag for a snack. I relaxed a little. Mrs. Patel is a constant, a piece of normalcy in a world that sometimes feels anything but. A few blocks later, I pick up Jamal, a college kid who works late at the hospital. He's always got headphones on, nodding to music only he can hear. He gives me a quick wave, then heads to his spot halfway down the aisle. I watch him pass 7B, see him hesitate for a split second, then keep moving. He doesn't look at the man in the black coat. No one ever does, not for long. The bus fills up slowly as we wind through the city. There's Mr. Alvarez, who works security at the mall, 2 nurses from the night shift, a young woman with a suitcase who never speaks. Each of them has their own routine, their own seat, their own way of pretending the night isn't as strange as it really is. I know them all, and they know me. We're a little community, bound together by the darkness and the hum of the engine. I keep my eyes on the road, but my mind drifts to the rules. I remember the first time I heard them, back when I was new and still thought the worst thing I'd see was a fight or a fair dodger. My trainer was a guy named Eddie, a grizzled old-timer with a limp and a laugh like gravel. He handed me the list on my first night, his face serious for once. "Read these," he said. "Memorize them. Don't ask questions, just do what they say. You want to make it to retirement, you follow the rules. Simple as that." I thought he was joking at first, but then I saw the look in his eyes, the way his hands shook when he talked about the river, or the time he skipped a stop after the lights flickered. I learned quickly, the rules aren't a joke. They're the only thing standing between you and the things that ride the night. Tonight, the rules feel heavier than usual. Maybe it's the man in 7B, or maybe it's the way the city seems quieter, like it's waiting for something. I glance at the list taped to the dash, my eyes tracing each line. I can feel Mrs. Patel watching me, her gaze sharp and knowing. She's seen things too, I think. Most of the regulars have, even if they don't talk about it. We hit the stretch of road that runs along the river, the water black and restless under the streetlights. I gripped the wheel tighter, remembering Rule 5. Never let anyone off between the river and the old hospital. I've never broken that one, and I don't plan to start tonight. The bus hums along, the heater fighting the chill, the windows fogging up at the corners. The city outside is a blur of rain and neon, but inside, everything feels suspended, like we're all holding our breath. I check the mirrors again, careful, methodical. The man in 7B hasn't moved. He sits perfectly still, hands folded in his lap, eyes fixed on the window. I look away before I can catch his gaze. At the next stop, no one is waiting. The lights flicker once, then settle. I exhale, tension easing just a little. The routine holds. The rules are working. But as we pull away, I catch a glimpse of something in the rear view, a shadow that shouldn't be there, a shape that doesn't belong. I blink, and it's gone. Just the rain, I tell myself. Just the night playing tricks. But deep down, I know better. Tonight isn't going to be routine. Tonight, something is different. And the rules might not be enough. We're halfway through the route when the first rule is put to the test. The city's lights thin out as we leave downtown, the bus gliding through a stretch of old warehouses and shuttered storefronts. The rain has eased, but the windows are still streaked with water, blurring the world outside into shifting shadows. I check the clock on the dash, 2:38. We're running on time, maybe even a minute ahead. As we approach the next stop, I see a figure standing at the curb. He's hunched under a street lamp, shoulders drawn up against the cold, face hidden by the brim of a baseball cap. He's early. Too early. The first rule is clear. Never let anyone board before 2:20, but we're well past that now. Still, something feels off. The man doesn't move as we approach, doesn't wave or step forward. He just stands there, motionless, as if he's waiting for something other than the bus. I slow to a stop, the brakes hissing in the quiet. The doors open with a sigh, and the man steps forward, but then he hesitates, one foot on the step, the other still on the wet pavement. He looks up, and for a moment, I catch a glimpse of his face, pale, eyes too wide, mouth working silently. He looks past me, scanning the bus, and I feel a prickle of unease crawl up my spine. "Late night, huh?" I say, trying to sound casual. He doesn't answer. Instead, he glances over his shoulder, as if checking for something behind him. The street is empty. The only sound is the distant rush of the river. He steps onto the bus, and I notice his shoes are bone dry, even though the pavement is slick with rain. He moves down the aisle, passing Mrs. Patel and Jamal, who both shrink back in their seats, eyes averted. He stops at seat 7B, glances at the man in the black coat, and then keeps moving, settling into the very last row. I close the doors, heart thumping. The rules don't say anything about letting someone on after 2:20, but I can't shake the feeling that I've missed something, that I've let something slip through. I check the mirrors, trying not to look at 7B, but my eyes are drawn to the back row. The new passenger sits perfectly still, hands folded in his lap, staring straight ahead. For a moment, I think he's looking at me, but his eyes are fixed on the man in 7B. The bus feels colder now, the heater struggling to keep up. I rub my hands together, trying to shake off the chill. Mrs. Patel catches my eye, her face pale. She mouths something, "Don't stop again," and I nod, understanding. The rules are there for a reason, and tonight, I'm starting to remember why. We roll on, the city falling away behind us. The next stop is empty, but as we pass, I see a child standing alone under the flickering streetlight. She's wearing a red coat, her hair plastered to her face by the rain. She raises a hand, waving, her eyes wide and pleading. Rule 6. If you see a child alone at a stop, keep driving. My foot hovers over the brake, instinct screaming at me to stop, to help. But I remember Eddie's voice, the way his hands shook when he told me about the night he broke that rule. I keep going, the bus rumbling past the girl, who lowers her hand and watches us disappear into the darkness. The tension in the bus is thick enough to taste. Jamal has taken off his headphones, eyes darting between the new passenger and the man in 7B. Mrs. Patel clutches her tote bag, knuckles white. Even the nurses are silent, their usual chatter replaced by uneasy glances. I grip the wheel, knuckles aching. The rules are more than superstition, they're survival. Tonight, I've already let something slip, and I can feel the consequences lurking just out of sight. The bus feels crowded, even though there are only a handful of us. Every shadow seems deeper, every sound sharper. At the next stop, no one is waiting. The lights flicker twice, and my heart skips a beat. Rule 3. If the lights flicker twice between stops, skip the next stop, no matter who's waiting. I check the mirrors, see the man in 7B turn his head ever so slightly, as if listening. I press the accelerator, passing the stop without slowing down. In the rear view, I see a figure standing at the curb, watching us go. I don't look back. The bus rolls on, the city growing stranger with every mile. I can feel the rules pressing in on me, each one a lifeline in the darkness. But tonight, for the first time, I wonder if they'll be enough. The man in the last row hasn't moved, but I can feel his eyes on me, cold and unblinking. The man in 7B sits perfectly still, a faint smile on his lips. And somewhere outside, the city waits, hungry and patient. I keep driving, the rules echoing in my mind, hoping I haven't already made a mistake I can't undo. Most nights, the routine is what keeps me sane. I drive the same route, see the same faces, and follow the same rules. There's comfort in repetition, in knowing what comes next. I greet Mrs. Patel as she boards, nod to Jamal as he slips into his seat, and exchange a tired smile with the nurses. I check the mirrors, tap the list of rules on the dash, and keep my eyes on the road. The city at night is a living thing, breathing in the darkness and exhaling secrets. But as long as I stick to the script, I can almost pretend it's just another job. But tonight, the routine feels brittle, like it could shatter at any moment. Every stop, every turn, every glance in the mirror is loaded with tension. The man in 7B hasn't moved, but his presence is a weight pressing down on the whole bus. The new passenger in the last row sits so still he might be carved from stone, but I can feel his gaze burning into the back of my neck. Even the regulars are on edge, their usual small talk replaced by nervous silence. I try to focus on the little things, the rituals that make the night bearable. I adjust the rearview mirror, careful not to catch anyone's eyes. I count the change in the fare box, fingers moving automatically. I sip my coffee, grimacing at the taste, and listen to the hum of the engine. These are the things that anchor me, that remind me I'm still in control. But every so often, something slips through, a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye, a whisper that sounds almost like my name, a cold draft that makes the hairs on my arms stand up. Between stops, I chat with Mrs. Patel about her grandchildren, let Jamal show me a new song on his phone, and ask the nurses about their shift. Their voices are soft, their laughter forced, but for a few minutes, the bus feels almost normal. I cling to those moments, knowing how quickly they can vanish. The city outside is a blur of wet pavement and neon, but inside, we're a little island of light and warmth, at least. That's what I tell myself. The contrast is sharpest when I'm alone at the wheel, the passengers lost in their own thoughts. The bus is a world unto itself, a moving sanctuary that keeps the night at bay. But the sanctuary is fragile. I see it in the way Mrs. Patel glances nervously at 7B, in the way Jamal keeps his headphones off, listening for something he can't quite name. I feel it in the way the lights sometimes flicker, in the way the heater struggles to keep the cold out. I've learned to trust my instincts, to listen to the little voice that warns me when something isn't right. I check the mirrors more often, double-check the doors at every stop, and keep the list of rules within arm's reach. I've added my own notes over the years, reminders about which stops feel wrong, which nights the city seems hungrier. I don't know if it helps, but it makes me feel less helpless. Tonight, the paranoia is worse than usual. Every time the bus slows for a stop, I brace myself for something out of place, a passenger who shouldn't be there, a face I don't recognize, a shadow that lingers too long. I watch the man in 7B out of the corner of my eye, careful never to look directly at him. I watch the new passenger in the last row, waiting for him to move, to speak, to do anything at all. But he just sits there, silent and still. The city outside is full of life, cars rushing past, people hurrying home, lights blinking in the rain. But on the bus, time feels stretched, every minute drawn out by the tension in the air. I find myself counting the stops, counting the passengers, counting the rules. I remind myself that I've made it through worse nights, that the routine will hold if I just keep moving. But deep down, I know something is different. The rules feel less like protection and more like a thin line between order and chaos. The bus feels smaller, the shadows deeper, the night colder. I wonder if the others feel it too, if they sense the danger lurking just beneath the surface of our mundane routines. I grip the wheel tighter, eyes fixed on the road ahead. The city is waiting, the night is hungry, and the rules are all that stand between us and whatever waits in the darkness. I tell myself that if I just keep driving, if I just follow the rules, we'll make it to morning. But tonight, I'm not so sure. We're halfway between the river and the old hospital when the first breach happens. The bus is quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you aware of every breath, every heartbeat, every creak of the frame as we roll over potholes. The rain has stopped, but the windows are fogged, and the city outside is a smear of darkness and distant lights. I'm counting the stops in my head, running through the rules like a prayer, when I hear it, a soft, insistent tapping from the back of the bus. At first, I thought it's just the usual sounds, a passenger shifting in their seat, someone tapping their foot. But the rhythm is wrong, too steady, too deliberate. I glance in the rear view, careful to avoid 7B, and see the new passenger in the last row. He's staring straight ahead, but his hand is drumming on the window, slow and even. Tap, tap, tap. The sound crawls up my spine. I try to ignore it, focusing on the road, but the tapping grows louder, more urgent. Mrs. Patel looks back, her face pinched with worry. Jamal shifts in his seat, glancing nervously at the back. Even the nurses have gone silent, their eyes darting between the rows. The man in 7B hasn't moved, but I can feel the tension radiating from him, like a storm about to break. We approach the next stop, the one just before the hospital. The lights flicker once, then again, and my heart stutters. Rule 3. If the lights flicker twice between stops, skip the next stop, no matter who's waiting. I press the accelerator, ready to pass by, but as we near the curb, I see a woman standing there, waving frantically. She's drenched, her hair plastered to her face, her eyes wide with fear. She looks right at me, mouthing something I can't hear. My foot hovers over the brake. Every instinct screams at me to stop, to help. But the rules are clear. I keep going, the bus rumbling past her. In the mirror, I see her drop her hand, her face crumpling in despair. I swallow hard, guilt gnawing at my gut, but I know I did the right thing. The rules aren't just suggestions, they're the only thing keeping us safe. That's when the tapping stops. The silence is sudden, absolute. I glance back, and the new passenger is gone. His seat is empty, the window fogged with the outline of a hand. I slam on the brakes, the bus lurching to a stop. The passengers gasp, clutching their seats. I scan the aisle, heart pounding. No sign of him. No one saw him leave. Did anyone see where he went? I ask, my voice shaking. Mrs. Patel shakes her head, eyes wide. Jamal just stares at the empty seat, his mouth working silently. The nurses whisper to each other, fear etched on their faces. The man in 7B finally moves, turning his head to look at me. His eyes are cold, unreadable. I get up, moving down the aisle, checking each row. The bus feels colder, the air thick with something I can't name. I reach the last row, staring at the empty seat. The window is open a crack, rainwater pooling on the sill. I close it, my hands trembling. As I turn to head back, I hear a whisper, my name, soft and urgent, coming from the seat behind me. I freeze. Rule 4. If you hear someone whisper your name, don't answer. My mouth goes dry. The whisper comes again, closer this time, like someone is leaning right over my shoulder. I force myself to move, to walk back to the front, never looking back. The bus is silent, every passenger watching me, waiting. I sit down, hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles ache. The rules are unraveling, one by one. The new passenger is gone, vanished without a trace. The tapping, the open window, the whisper, none of it makes sense, but I know it's all connected. The man in 7B is still watching me, his eyes reflecting the dim light like a cat's. I start the bus, pulling away from the curb. The city feels different now, the streets narrower, the shadows deeper. The passengers are silent, their fear palpable. I check the mirrors, see nothing but darkness and rain. But I can feel something riding with us, something that shouldn't be here. As we approach the hospital, the bus grows colder. Frost creeps along the windows, the heater struggling to keep up. I see my breath in the air, white and thin. The lights flicker again, and for a moment, I see a face in the glass, a pale, twisted reflection that isn't mine. I look away, heart racing. We reach the hospital stop, and Mrs. Patel stands, clutching her bag. "This is me," she says, her voice trembling. I hesitate, remembering Rule 5. Never let anyone off between the river and the old hospital. But we're past the hospital now, aren't we? I check the clock, the route, my mind spinning. Everything feels wrong, out of order. Mrs. Patel looks at me, pleading. "Please, Daniel. I need to get off." I open the doors, the cold rushing in. She steps out, glancing back at the bus, her eyes full of fear. The doors close, and I pull away, the bus feeling emptier, lonelier. The man in 7B smiles, just a little, and I shiver. As we round the corner, I see the new passenger standing under a streetlight, watching us go. His eyes meet mine, and I feel a jolt of terror, sharp and electric. He raises a hand, waving slowly, and I know this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The bus rolls on, the night pressing in, and I realize the rules have been broken. And now, we're all at risk. The city outside the windows is unrecognizable now, swallowed by fog and rain, the streetlights flickering like dying stars. I drive on autopilot, hands numb on the wheel, mind racing with questions I can't answer. The rules are supposed to keep us safe, but tonight they feel like a riddle I'm failing to solve. The man in 7B is still watching me, his eyes reflecting the dim light like a cat's. I start the bus, pulling away from the curb. The city feels different now, the streets narrower, the shadows deeper. The passengers are silent, their fear palpable. I check the mirrors, see nothing but darkness and rain. But I can feel something riding with us, something that shouldn't be here. As we approach the hospital, the bus grows colder. Frost creeps along the windows, the heater struggling to keep up. I see my breath in the air, white and thin. The lights flicker again, and for a moment, I see a face in the glass, a pale, twisted reflection that isn't mine. I look away, heart racing. We reach the hospital stop, and Mrs. Patel stands, clutching her bag. "This is me," she says, her voice trembling. I hesitate, remembering Rule 5. Never let anyone off between the river and the old hospital. But we're past the hospital now, aren't we? I check the clock, the route, my mind spinning. Everything feels wrong, out of order. Mrs. Patel looks at me, pleading, "Please, Daniel, I need to get off." I open the doors, the cold rushing in. She steps out, glancing back at the bus, her eyes full of fear. The doors close, and I pull away, the bus feeling emptier, lonelier. The man in 7B smiles, just a little, and I shiver. As we round the corner, I see the new passenger standing under a streetlight, watching us go. His eyes meet mine, and I feel a jolt of terror, sharp and electric. He raises a hand, waving slowly, and I know this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The bus rolls on, the night pressing in, and I realize the rules have been broken. And now, we're all at risk. The city outside the windows is unrecognizable now, swallowed by fog and rain, the streetlights flickering like dying stars. I drive on autopilot, hands numb on the wheel, mind racing with questions I can't answer. The rules are supposed to keep us safe, but tonight they feel like a riddle I'm failing to solve. I keep replaying the last hour in my head, how the new passenger vanished, how Mrs. Patel begged to get off, how the man in 7B smiled as if he'd been waiting for this moment all along. Jamal moves up the aisle, sliding into the seat behind me. He leans forward, voice low. "Man, what's going on tonight? Did you see that guy just disappear?" And Mrs. Patel, she never gets off before the end of the line. His words tumble out, fast and anxious, and I realize I'm not the only one unraveling. The passengers are looking to me for answers, but I have none to give. I try to reassure him, but my voice sounds hollow. It's just a weird night. Maybe the storm's messing with the lights. Maybe Mrs. Patel wasn't feeling well. Even as I say it, I know it's a lie. The air on the bus is thick with fear, and every time I check the mirrors, I half expect to see something impossible staring back at me. The man in 7B hasn't moved, but I can feel his presence like a cold draft. I avoid looking at him, but sometimes I catch a glimpse in the glass, his reflection always a split second behind, as if he's watching from somewhere else. The nurses whisper to each other, clutching their bags, eyes darting to the back of the bus. One of them, a woman named Carla, finally speaks up. "Driver, can you just let us off at the next stop? I don't care where it is. I just want to get out." I hesitate, remembering the rules. Never let anyone off between the river and the old hospital. But are we past that stretch? The city outside is so warped by fog and rain that I can't tell where we are anymore. The GPS on the dash blinks uselessly, the screen frozen on a map that doesn't match the streets I see. I feel the weight of every decision pressing down on me, the fear that one wrong move could doom us all. Jamal's voice is a whisper now. "You ever wonder if there's more to the rules? Like something they don't tell us?" My cousin used to drive nights and said there were things you only learned after you'd been on the job a while. Stuff you had to figure out for yourself. He glances at the list taped to the dash, then back at me. "Have you ever heard about the 10th rule?" The question hangs in the air, heavy and dangerous. I've heard rumors, of course, old drivers muttering about a secret rule, something you only learn when it's too late. Eddie hinted at it once, after a long shift when he was too tired to keep his guard up. "There's always one more rule," he'd said, eyes haunted. "But you don't want to know it. Not unless you have to." I don't answer Jamal, but the doubt gnaws at me. What if there is a 10th rule? What if that's the key to surviving nights like this? I glance at the man in 7B, wondering if he knows. His smile is gone now, replaced by a look of quiet satisfaction, as if he's watching a puzzle come together. The bus lurches as we hit a pothole, and the lights flicker again. For a split second, the world outside the windows changes, no longer city streets, but a black expanse dotted with distant, shifting lights. I blink, and the city returns, but the image lingers in my mind, a warning I can't ignore. The tension on the bus is a living thing now, coiling tighter with every mile. The nurses are arguing in hushed voices, one of them insisting they should pull the emergency stop and get out, the other refusing to move. Jamal keeps glancing at the back, his hands shaking. I feel the pressure building, the sense that something is about to break. I try to focus on the rules, to find comfort in their certainty, but they feel flimsy, incomplete. I wonder how many other drivers have sat where I am now, questioning everything, searching for answers in the dark. I wonder how many made it to morning. A cold wind snakes through the bus, making everyone shiver. I check the mirrors, remembering Rule 7. If the bus gets cold, check the mirrors. In the rear view, I see a shape moving in the aisle, a shadow that doesn't belong to anyone on board. It glides past the seats, pausing behind Jamal, then slips into the last row, merging with the darkness. I grip the wheel, heart pounding, afraid to look back. The city outside is a maze now, the streets looping back on themselves, the landmarks all wrong. I realize with a jolt that we've been driving in circles, passing the same boarded-up storefront 3 times. The GPS is still frozen, the clock on the dash stuck at 3:13. Time itself feels broken. Jamal leans forward again, voice trembling. "Whatever happens, man, just don't break the rules. Even if they don't make sense. Even if it feels wrong. Promise me." I nod, but inside, doubt is winning. The rules are all I have, but tonight, they feel like a test I'm destined to fail. And somewhere in the darkness, I sense that the real danger hasn't even revealed itself yet. As we round another corner, the man in 7B finally stands, turning to face me. His eyes are empty, endless, and I know the night is far from over. The man in 7B rises with a slow, deliberate grace, as if gravity has no claim on him. The bus seems to tilt in his direction, the lights dimming to a sickly yellow. Every passenger goes silent, even the nurses mid-argument, as if some primal instinct warns them not to move, not to breathe. I feel the air thicken, pressing against my chest, and for a moment I can't remember how to drive, how to do anything but stare at the figure now gliding down the aisle. He stops halfway, his eyes fixed on me in the mirror. "You've done well, Daniel," he says, his voice a low hum that vibrates in my bones. "But tonight, the rules are changing." His lips curl into a smile that's all teeth and shadow. "You let something in. Now you have to let something out." I want to look away, but I can't. My hands are glued to the wheel, my heart hammering so hard I think it might burst. The other passengers shrink into their seats, eyes wide, faces pale. Jamal is whispering a prayer, his knuckles white as he grips the seat in front of him. The nurses clutch each other, tears streaming down their cheeks. The bus is a tomb, and I am its keeper. The man in 7B turns to the back, to the last row where the vanished passenger once sat. He raises a hand, and the shadows there begin to writhe, coalescing into a shape, a figure, tall and thin, with eyes like burning coals. It steps forward, its movements jerky and unnatural, and the temperature drops so fast my breath fogs the air. The windows frost over, the world outside erased by a sheet of ice. Rule 9. At the end of the route, always check every seat, except the last one. I remember Eddie's warning, the way his voice shook when he told me never to break that rule. But tonight, the last row is no longer empty. The thing that sits there is not human, not even close. The bus shudders, the engine sputtering as if it wants to die. The lights flicker, and for a moment, I see the city outside replaced by a void, a swirling darkness filled with distant, hungry shapes. The man in 7B steps aside, gesturing to the thing in the last row. "It's time," he says, and I realize with a jolt that he's not talking to me. He's talking to it. The creature moves up the aisle, its eyes fixed on me. Every step it takes leaves a trail of frost, the floorboards cracking under its weight. The passengers cower, some sobbing, others frozen in terror. Jamal tries to stand, to put himself between me and the thing, but his legs buckle and he collapses to the floor. I want to run, to open the doors and flee into the night, but I can't move. The rules are all I have, but they're unraveling, slipping through my fingers like smoke. The creature stops in front of me, its face inches from mine. Its breath is cold and sweet, like rotting flowers. It leans in, and I hear my name, whispered in a dozen voices, my mother, my daughter, Eddie, all the people I've lost. "Let me off," it says, its voice a chorus of longing and hunger. "Let me out." Rule 5. Never let anyone off between the river and the old hospital. But where are we? The city outside is gone, replaced by a landscape of shifting shadows and distant lights. I don't know the rules anymore. I don't know if they matter. The creature reaches for the door, its fingers long and sharp. I know, deep in my bones, that if I open the doors, something terrible will happen, not just to me, but to everyone on this bus, maybe everyone in the city. But if I don't know what it will do to us. The man in 7B watches, his eyes gleaming. You have to choose, Daniel. The rules or the passengers. The city or yourself. The pressure is unbearable. The creature's hand is on the door, the metal groaning under its grip. Jamal is screaming now, begging me not to open it. The nurses are praying, their voices rising in a desperate chant. I feel tears on my cheeks, hot and bitter. I made my choice. I reach for the lever, my hand shaking so badly I can barely grip it. The creature's eyes lock onto mine, and for a moment, I see something almost human in them. Fear, hope, hunger. I pull the lever, and the doors hiss open. The cold rushes in, a wind that smells of earth and graveyards. The creature steps out, vanishing into the darkness. For a heartbeat, the world is silent. Then the man in 7B laughs, a sound that echoes through the bus like breaking glass. The lights snap back to normal, the frost melts from the windows, and the city returns, bright and alive. The passengers slump in their seats, exhausted and weeping. Jamal crawls back to his seat, eyes wide with shock. But something is wrong. The city outside is not the city I know. The streets are twisted, the buildings unfamiliar. The bus is moving, but I'm not driving. The man in 7B is gone, his seat empty. The list of rules on the dash is blank, the ink faded to nothing. I realize, with a cold certainty, that I've broken the most important rule of all, the one I never knew existed. The rule that says you never, ever let them out. The bus rolls on into a city that isn't mine, with passengers who are no longer sure who they are. And I sit at the wheel, haunted by the choice I made, knowing that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. The city outside is a maze of unfamiliar streets and impossible angles, a place that feels stitched together from half-remembered dreams and old nightmares. I drive in silence, the engine humming beneath me, the passengers quiet and hollow-eyed. The rules are gone from the dash, but their absence is louder than any warning. I keep glancing at the empty space, as if the words might reappear and save me from what I've done. It's Jamal who finally breaks the silence. He leans forward, voice hoarse. "Where are we, man? This isn't the city. This isn't anywhere." His words echo the fear in my own chest. I want to answer, to reassure him, but I have nothing left to give. The bus slows as we approach a crossroads I've never seen before. At the corner stands a figure, Eddie, my old trainer, looking just as he did the last time I saw him, but older, more worn. He steps onto the bus, his eyes meeting mine with a sadness that cuts deeper than any threat. "You broke the circle, Daniel," he says quietly. "That's what the rules were for. Not just to keep things out, but to keep things in. Every night, the city tests us. Every night, we hold the line. But when the wrong door opens, the city changes. The world changes." I stare at him, desperate for answers. What was that thing? Why the rules? Why me? Eddie sighs, settling into a seat near the front. There are places in the world where the walls are thin, where the night leaks through. The bus route is one of them. The rules are old, older than the city, older than the roads. They're not just instructions. They're a bargain. We follow them, and the things in the dark stay where they belong. But if we break them, even once, the bargain is broken. He looks at the passengers, his gaze lingering on Jamal, the nurses, the empty seat in the back. Every driver gets tested. Some pass, some don't. The ones who fail, well, the city remembers. It changes to fit what's been let in or let out. Sometimes the driver disappears. Sometimes the passengers do. Sometimes the whole route is swallowed up, replaced by something else. I feel the weight of his words settle on my shoulders. Is there any way back? Eddie shakes his head. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. The city you knew is gone, at least for now. You'll drive this route until the bargain is restored, or until someone else takes your place. That's the last rule, the one nobody writes down. The route always needs a driver. The bus is moving again, the streets outside shifting and warping, the lights flickering in colors I've never seen. I realize now that the rules weren't just about survival. They were about containment, about keeping the world safe from what rides the night. I broke the circle, and now we're all paying the price. Eddie stands, his form already fading at the edges. Remember this, Daniel, the rules are more than words. They're a promise. If you ever get another chance, keep them, for everyone's sake. He steps off the bus, vanishing into the mist. The doors close behind him, and I'm left with the passengers, the empty city, and the knowledge that I've become part of the story I never wanted to believe. The bus rolls on, and I grip the wheel, determined to hold the line if I ever get the chance again. The city outside is a shifting labyrinth, every turn leading deeper into the unknown. The bus rattles along streets that shouldn't exist, past buildings that lean at impossible angles, their windows glowing with a sickly, unnatural light. My hands are slick on the wheel, heart pounding as I search for any sign of the world I once knew. The passengers are silent, their faces pale and drawn, eyes fixed on me as if I'm the only thing anchoring them to reality. A stop appears ahead, a flickering sign that reads, "End of the line." The bus slows on its own, brakes squealing as we come to a halt. The doors remain closed, the engine idling in a low, anxious growl. I sense it before I see it, a presence at the back of the bus, colder than the grave, heavier than regret. I turn, and there it is, the thing from the last row, its form more solid now, eyes burning with hunger and accusation. It glides up the aisle, each step making the lights dim and the air grow colder. The passengers shrink away, some sobbing, others frozen in terror. Jamal clutches the seat in front of him, whispering my name, begging me not to do anything foolish. The creature stops at the front, blocking the doors. Its voice is 1,000 whispers, all speaking at once. "You broke the rules, Daniel. Now you must choose. Open the doors and let us out, or keep them closed and stay here forever." I look at the passengers, Jamal, the nurses, the faces I've come to know. I remember Eddie's words. The rules are a promise, a bargain. I realize now that the final test isn't about escape. It's about responsibility. If I open the doors, I unleash whatever this thing is into the world. If I keep them closed, we may be trapped, but the city outside remains safe. The creature leans closer, its breath icy on my skin. "Choose, driver." The night is hungry. My mind races. I think of my daughter's photo, still taped to the dash, a reminder of what matters. I think of the city, of all the people who trust the night bus to get them home. I grip the wheel, resolve the hardening in my chest. "No," I say, voice steady despite the fear. "I won't open the doors. Not again." The creature's eyes narrow, its form flickering with rage. The bus shakes, windows rattling as the darkness outside presses in. The passengers cry out, the lights strobing wildly. I hold on, refusing to move, refusing to break. The pressure builds, a storm of shadows battering the bus, but I don't yield. I repeat the rules in my mind, clinging to them like a lifeline. The creature screams, a sound that tears at my soul, but I keep my eyes forward, hands locked on the wheel. Then, as suddenly as it began, the storm breaks. The darkness recedes, the city outside snapping back into focus. The bus is still, the engine humming quietly. The creature is gone, leaving only a faint chill in the air. The passengers stir, relief and confusion on their faces. Jamal lets out a shaky laugh. The nurses hug each other, and I realize we've made it through. I glance at the dash, and the list of rules is back, the ink bold and clear. I exhale, the weight lifting from my shoulders. The final test is over. I kept the promise. The bus is safe, for now. The city outside is familiar again, but it feels changed, as if the night itself is watching us. The bus rolls through quiet streets, headlights sweeping over empty sidewalks and shuttered storefronts. The passengers are silent, each lost in their own thoughts, the terror of what happened lingering in the air like the last notes of a funeral song. I drive on autopilot, hands steady on the wheel, but inside I'm shaking, every nerve raw. Jamal is the first to break the silence. He stands, voice trembling but alive. "We made it, man. I don't know how, but we did." He tries to smile, but it falters, and he sits back down, staring out the window as if searching for proof that the world is real again. The nurses gather their things, eyes red, whispering to each other in relief and disbelief. One of them squeezes my shoulder as she passes, a silent thank you that says more than words ever could. We reach the final stop, and the passengers file off one by one, each glancing back at me with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Jamal lingers at the door, hesitating. "You're a good driver, Daniel. Don't let anyone tell you differently." He steps into the night, the doors hissing shut behind him. I sit alone for a long moment, the engine idling, the city quiet. I look at the list of rules taped to the dash, the ink as dark and sharp as the night itself. I know now what they really mean, what they're meant to protect, and what they demand in return. The cost is high. I feel it in the ache behind my eyes, in the tremor in my hands, in the memories that will haunt my dreams. I check the bus, seat by seat, careful to skip the last row. The air back there is colder, heavier, as if the shadows haven't quite let go. I close the doors, lock up, and walk out into the dawn, the city washed clean by rain. The world looks the same, but I know better. I know what waits in the dark, what rides the night with us, what rules must never be broken. At home, I sit at the kitchen table, staring at my daughter's photo. I want to tell her everything, to warn her, to make her understand. But some stories are too heavy to share, some truths too dangerous to speak aloud. I pour a cup of coffee, hands still shaking, and watch the sun rise, grateful for another day. I know this isn't the end. The city will call again, the bus will rumble through the night, and the rules will wait for the next test. Maybe it'll be me behind the wheel, or maybe someone else. The bargain holds, for now, but the night is patient. It always is. As I finish my coffee, I think about the last thing Eddie said. The route always needs a driver. I understand now. We're all just holding the line, night after night, hoping the rules will be enough. And maybe, just maybe, that's what it means to be human. To face the darkness, to follow the rules, and to keep driving, no matter what waits at the next stop.